last week, the Rand Corporation released a report that said that Russia has the ability to overthrow NATO within 3 weeks. Considering that, maybe half of the American citizens think that it wasn't Bin Laden who was responsible for 9/11, do you think that we're going to accidentally sleepwalk, I think that was the term that was used for World War I, into a great power war? Putin
with Russia?
Well, potentially. Putin's got $50 billion scored away, and he would potentially want to start a war rather than be removed from power and get killed by all of his enemies.
So I haven't read that Rand report, so I can't really comment on that, but I think it's pretty clear that we're in a rather dangerous situation now in Syria, where you have US troops on the ground in Syria, advisors with the rebels. You've got a lot of Western-backed rebels being bombed by the Russians. You have a significant amount of air and anti-air activity going on, which is bringing NATO nations like Turkey into really close proximity with Russian jets engaged in strikes. And you've got, I think the Russians and the Iranians right now are pushing for an encirclement of Aleppo, Syria's second city, that could result in a massive humanitarian tragedy. And we're going to run into a dilemma about what to do about that. Now, if our track record is any guide, we're going to back down, right? But if we do not back down, or if there's an error, there's every chance that we could run into, I wouldn't say a shooting war, but shooting incidents between Russian forces and other forces on the ground in Syria, possibly also in Iraq. So it's a very dangerous set of circumstances, and I think it's also worth noting that for the Russians, the Arctic, the Baltic, Ukraine, Crimea, Syria, the Black Sea, it's all one, and Central Asia, it's all one front with different aspects. But as we said earlier, we tend to treat them as sort of separate conflicts in their own right, so we have a very disunified strategic point of view, and the Russians have a very clear goal. It's very simple. We may not agree with it, but they know exactly what they're trying to achieve, and it's a relatively limited objective, which is basically to retain control of the Tartus naval base and the air bases around Latakia, to prop up the Assad regime, although not necessarily Assad, just sufficiently to hold on to those critical national interests. So because they have that very clear goal, we do run the risk of conflict.
Just as a rejoinder, just with China and Russia and Australia's kind of involvement, if a great power war was to start, Malcolm Fraser said that dangerous allies and those treaties are very dangerous. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit out of my expertise. I'm a field guy, right? But if you were to ask a politician, they would probably say, we have an alliance with the Americans, and it's not really a dilemma. I think clearly it would have a conflict between particularly China and the United States would have massive economic impact on Australia. That is not necessarily a good reason for not engaging in it. It's a political decision that would have to be looked at the time. You're probably aware that Chinese have just started putting anti-air missiles today onto the islands that they're building in the South China Sea, the Spratlys and Parasols. So that's also an environment where the risk of miscalculation is increasing. And a broader point, and then we'll go to the next question, you're actually underlying something a point that I make in the book, which is we've actually conflated national security with counter-terrorism for much of the time since 9/11. There are other issues out there that are at least as important and possibly more dangerous, right, than a group like ISIS. And so we need to broaden the aperture a bit and say, killing terrorists is not the same thing as defeating ISIS, and defeating ISIS is not the same thing as making